mission is different. If anybody has ever watched our live streams, if you have ever been to one of our celebrations in person, you know we're different. We are not like any church out there. We're not like any other spiritual community. Jubilee Circle, this is a spiritual dojo. This is the place where people come, they learn the inner moves, they learn the tools that they need to become the light of the world, to remember who they are, to remember that they are the light of the world and that their function in this world is to go out and be that light every single day. We are here to offer you the tools that you need to transform yourself, to expand yourself, to understand that you are the light of the world. You are the unlimited vastness of the holy. And we can help you connect. And we can help you find a community where you can grow and you can be transformed and you can transform the world.
Everybody to Jubilee Circle. Welcome to those that are here. Yay! We have a good crowd today. And welcome to all of you in virtual land. We are Jubilee Circle in Columbia, South Carolina. I'm Julie Buckley, and I'm your host for today, because today is a special day for us. We're doing a pulpit swap. Our pastor, Candace Shalot, is in Asheville, and Laura Collins from Asheville is here with us. Yay! So, Laura, it's good to have you and your friend Van with us. We're so glad you're with us today. I want to do something a little bit special today. Jessie, come up for a minute. Yay, Jessica. Come stand right here. Can you come stand right here by me? We're going to do a short little segment called I Am Jubilee Circle. And about 4 years ago, Jessica and I found Jubilee Circle. And I want to share with you about that. We were on a search for a new spiritual community. And we attended a drum circle that was hosted here, didn't we? Yep, we did. That was hosted here at Jubilee. And I was really curious about this spiritual community. So the next Sunday, I looked at Jessica and I said, let's go check it out. So we did. And we found our tribe, didn't we?
Yep.
Okay. Everyone was so accepting of all the differences. And there was a light that was shining so brightly. And at Jubilee, Jessica and I are learning skills to help us maneuver as we walk on this big blue marble. So we are so thankful to have found Jubilee. So we are Jubilee Circle. All right, go have a seat. Janice, you are Jubilee.
Really? So yeah, last week Julie asked me to say a few things about how I got here and why I stayed, which I thought was really interesting. I got here because for a long time I have been looking for a spiritual family. I have tried a number of different groups and nothing seemed to jibe. They were all fine, but nothing felt right. It didn't click. I've been here almost 2 years. So almost 2 years ago, actually that's not true. So 3 years ago, I found an ad in Natural Awakenings for Jubilee Circle. I cut out the ad, I put it at my desk, and promptly forgot about it. Then a year later, I found it in my desk and went, hey, I need to try this. And so I came on a Sunday, and it was actually Julie who greeted me, and I was made very welcome. And then Candace started speaking, and I cried through the entire sermon, and I knew I'd found my family. And I'm still here because I was wearing a shirt that said American Banjo Museum, and after the sermon, Michael ran up to me and said, "Do you play the banjo?" I'm like, "Kinda." So, so I joined the band, but really what has made me stay is that I'm challenged here. I am challenged all the time. I realize that over my life, I have isolated myself from people, really. I hang out with my family. I really had no friends. And so when I came here and all these people were around me, it's kind of been hard. It's been hard in a wonderful kind of way, because I feel finally I'm allowed to grow. I've found a safe space where people accept me no matter how weird I get. And I can finally grow, and so this is my home.
Yay. Hey, Lee is actually the president of the board for this this misfit group. Lee,
Yeah, that was a good trick.
I am Jubilee.
I joined the board, and then they elected me president, and I thought that was pretty slick. But anyway, and actually, it's good to be back. Yeah, right. But I'm Jubilee because I came here. I just recently become separated from my wife, and then outside I'm kind of a normal person. I work at a regular job in customer service for a boat factory. I own rental property, and outside I'm just a regular guy. But deep inside I've got this deep spiritual longing, and I imagine myself as a spiritual poet, and you know, connecting with these people. With Jubilee, it connected with what I'm trying to connect with inwardly. It connected outwardly, and so it was like a real connection, you know. And I started coming. Keith found it first. Keith and I are old buddies from 30 years ago, and so thank you, Keith, and thank you, everybody. It's the connection, the outward connection that supplements the inward connection is just amazing, and I'm just glad I am Jubilee.
Yay! So we would love for you to come be a part of Jubilee. We are doing masks for protection, but come on and join us, especially if you've been vaccinated. Come join us, or continue to watch us with the virtual. This morning we're going to continue our Via Positiva with the theme of How I Wander. This quarter we're discovering how wonder can help us experience more miracles and remember who we truly are. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
As in the tradition of many cultures at Jubilee Circle, we begin by remembering the 4 elements. The elements that keep us grounded, the directions with the elements. I'm watching carefully. All right. I had to move. That's not always easy. Okay, the elements help to keep us grounded, and the elements are connected with the directions. We have the air, we have water, we have the earth, and we have light, fire, that keep us grounded. We burn black sage as a reminder to set our intentions to become God's love, joy, peace, and light in the world. And we orientate ourselves in the sacred time and space by calling the 4 directions. Today, we're going to do something just a little bit different. If everybody will come and join me around the table, we're going to actually partake of the elements as we do the directions. You can't.
I'm not a fire eater, Bob.
You're not a fire eater today. Okay, let's turn and face the east. East is the air. Let's collectively take a life-giving breath. So everybody take a great big deep breath. Janice?
Holy One, as the sun begins its journey across the sky, let us be thankful that it is living into its purpose. providing warmth and new life to this blue boat we call home. Thank you, Holy One, that the sun does not long to be the moon, but instead spends each day becoming what you have created it to be. May we, too, live into how you created us, to give life into ourselves and to the world.
Quarter turn to the right. We face the south. The south is fire. If everyone will gather and get a candle and light. You can share the light if you would like. Darkness.
We thank you, Holy One, that the South is as the South does, bringing its warm winds and humidity in its season. Without those warm winds, we would not appreciate the cool breezes of fall or even the chill of winter. Thank you, Holy One, that the South lives to its purpose to provide us warmth and food we need, like cucumbers, peppers, mushrooms, and more. The summer is truly delicious, Holy One. May we, too, live into the deliciousness of our own lives, feeding ourselves and others.
Okay, quarter turn to the right, and we face the west, which is water. Have a cup of nice, refreshing water.
I want to put your candles out.
I know, really.
Of the nice refreshing water. The water helps to sustain our life.
The West, Holy One, is a place of rest, an invitation to put down the burdens of our lives when our journey ends. As the sun sets and the stars begin their nightly trek across the sky, let us give thanks for how well the West lives into its purpose. As the heat of the day dissipates, help us to breathe deeply and let go of the day's disappointments and challenges. Help us to rest in you, Holy One, and to offer others rest as well.
Quarter turn to the right, and we face the north. The north is the earth. The north gives us our nourishment. The life-sustaining food provided by the earth.
Help us to appreciate the North, Holy One, even in the times of bone-chilling cold. Help us especially to appreciate the cold winters within ourselves, where life may seem to be frozen. Out of that ice, Holy One, remind us that new growth is being born, to spring forth into life in its season. Give us the patience we need to endure the winter of our lives, and help us to provide warmth for those going through their own frozen times.
Turn back to the center.
We're all on a journey, Jubilants, a journey to remember who we are and how we are to live while we're on this journey. We are the light of the world, and as that light, our purpose is to shine the love of God into the world so brightly that everyone gets to say, "Oh yeah."
Yeah. Now you can just blow your candles. Make a wish. Okay, carry on, Van.
do.
We did so good in practice.
Hey, Jubilee, we roll with everything. No sweat. Jubilee Circle is an inclusive, even for the mistakes, progressive, yes, we keep on going, interfaith community in Columbia, South Carolina. We teach the timeless common wisdom of love and unity found in mainstream religions, metaphysical philosophies, mysticism, and the teaching of inspired secular and religious leaders. We seek to create a space for everyone to transform spiritually, to find life's deeper meaning, to love wastefully, to engage the world peacefully, and to do justice, all in an effort to discover how to live into their true divine self. We also recognize that we are all God's creation, formed in love and joy. We humans often forget this, believing instead that we are lost in a world of paradox where we encounter others as beautiful and ugly, good and bad, generous and stingy, loving and recalcitrant. Let us remember that our function here, Jubilants, is to continually return to the home we have never left, while we embody and be open channel for love that created us. Oh, yeah. All right, some announcements. Next Sunday, Pastor Candace will be back with us, and we will continue with How I Wander and explore a sense of how wonder can help us create miracles and remember who we truly are. And she'll be using music from Nick Lowe to explore the wonder of peace. Peace, peace, peace. And then on Friday, September the 7th, we'll have our open mic featuring Tim O'Keefe, and he'll kick off singing at 7. And then followed by that will be the open mic at 8. Singers, poets, dancers, comedians, tongue twisters, whatever your talent is, come and participate in our open mic. It's a lot of fun for all. And as you can see, we're a very open and welcoming group, so that is not an issue. Friday, September the 3rd. Did I say it wrong? Oh my. It starts at 7 on September the 3rd. Thank y'all for correcting me. You know what? We'll even feed you if you come. We're going to have chicken bog, but for those like Keith, who's vegan, there'll be a vegan dish. There'll also be one that's keto friendly. So we try to adapt for everyone. So come and enjoy a meal with us. We do suggest a $10 donation, which helps cover the food and helps cover the drinks. And then we take a separate collection for the performer. Hey, in my books, that's still a cheap date. So come on and join us on Friday night and invite somebody to come with you. We want everybody to stay healthy, wealthy, and wise. So at Jubilee, we do have some masks for a $10 donation. We do encourage you to wear your mask during this time, and please get vaccinated. We want to fill up this place, and I don't think that's going to happen until we can get this virus under control. And the mask will make a big difference, and so will the vaccinations. After the sermon by Laura, we are going to have a Zoom talk back, and we would love for you to come and participate with us. It's open for everyone, not just Jubilee Circle folks. You know, if you're tuning in for the first time, come and join us on the Zoom link. You'll find it on our website, jubileecircle.com, and that will be immediately following the service. And hey, while you're there at jubileecircle.com, there is a donation button that we would love for you to click for your support. Laura, we again welcome you to Jubilee Circle here in Columbia. Laura is a minister of transition at the Jubilee community in Asheville, North Carolina. We often refer this as the mothership. Laura served as minister in 3 different congregations between 1990 and 2004. She also has worked in hospice and trauma chaplaincy, prison ministry, retreat ministry, and nonprofit communications and fundraising. Twice she was brought into churches in transition, once to rebuild a deeply wounded congregation, and once to provide a bridge for a congregation grieving the death of its minister. Laura has a son that's a graduate in graduate school at Chapel Hill, and a mother in assisted living in Black Mountain. She lives in West Asheville with her dog Zoe dog. Laura, after the song, we look forward to your guidance in the word of wonder of the journey.
Doctors have come from distant cities just to see me. Stand over my bed, disbelieving what they're seeing. They say I must be one of the wonders of God's creation. And as far as they see, they can offer no explanation. People see me as a challenge to your balance. I'm over my head. I'm confounded. I'll astound you. And as far must be one of the wonders of God's creation. And as far as they see, they can offer no explanation. Smiled at destiny. After she came to my cradle, know this child will be able. After my body she lifted, know this child will be gifted. With love and patience and with faith, she'll make her way. She'll make her way. She'll make her
Woo. Well, thank you for that warm welcome, and thank you for that Natalie Merchant song. I was just thinking about, I saw Natalie Merchant in concert in Indianapolis years ago, and it was one of those days where I found out late that she was going to be in town, and so I just ran to the venue that day, and because I was by myself, you know, sometimes there's the advantage to being single is you can just walk up and everyone's got their little 2s and 3 seats, and there was one seat left by itself about 2 rows back from the stage. So I got a great ticket and got to enjoy Natalie Merchant that day. All right, so thanks for that Natalie Merchant song. So earlier this summer, in that brief window when we were feeling vaccinated and free before the Delta variant came to crush our spirits, I journeyed to France for my niece's wedding. And I decided that if I was going to be in France anyway, the one thing I wanted to do besides the wedding was to visit the area of southern France where tradition has it that Mary Magdalene spent the latter half of her life. Wait, what? Mary Magdalene lived in France? Well, many people, myself included, had never heard about this possibility before Dan Brown wrote the Da Vinci Code. And I didn't read the Da Vinci Code. And frankly, books that take a little bit of church history or theology and twist it into something to fit their genre, in this case a thriller, tend to kind of irritate me. Church history is mucked up enough without novelists confusing it even more. For example, you may well know that the Bible that most of us are familiar with is a set of writings done over thousands of years by numerous authors in various communities, which all started out as oral tradition and eventually got written down and then copied by scribes and passed around. And none of the original manuscripts exist. So everything that we have in the Bible is based on much later manuscripts, which didn't always agree with each other. So every version of the Bible is the result of years of scholars poring over ancient manuscripts and trying to discern which are the most reliable, which are the most old, which are the most important. It's a very subjective process. One might even say biased. From word choices to guessing what missing fragments might have said, all of these decisions were made by people. Men. So if you grew up Christian, you grew up with a New Testament that had 27 books. Most Christians agreed about these 27. At least they agreed on them from about the year 400 until about 20, 30 years ago. The earliest known list of these 27 books is found in a letter written by Athanasius, the Bishop of Alexandria, around 367 of the Common Era. His version of the 27-book New Testament was first formalized in North Africa during the councils of Hippo in 393 and Carthage in 397, and then Pope Innocent ratified that canon in 405. In other words, the New Testament that most people know was chosen by a handful of bishops and a pope a few hundred years after Jesus. Now you might ask, what was happening in the previous 400 years? And that would be an excellent question. Here's what was happening. In the years after Jesus was walking here on the earth, groups of his followers all around the Mediterranean region, especially in North Africa and the Middle East and what we know now as Greece and Turkey and Italy, were meeting. And these groups came into existence because someone traveled there. And these stories of Jesus would be written down and carried from one place to another. And then people wrote letters between the communities. And each group had their own set of stories and their own readings that they shared. And each community was coming up with its own particular focus, with theologies and rituals based on their interpretation, which seemed to be working just fine until some influential guys decided to consolidate their power by deciding which groups were in and which groups were out. And they wanted to control the narrative of what was orthodox and what wasn't. And so they didn't just say, hey, here are the 27 writings that we think are most important. No, they said, these are the 27 writings that from this day forward will be all the thinking about Jesus, and all other writings must be destroyed at once, and anyone who follows those other writings and don't agree with this orthodoxy are heretics. So that's what happened. Except some manuscripts got hidden and were not found until the last 100 years or so. Now, you might notice, if you're familiar with that 27-book New Testament, that none of the writings are by women, because no women were writing about Jesus, right? Survey says. In fact, there are a number of writings by women, including a Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which was known simply as the Gospel of Mary, and there have been 3 different versions of it found in different places. Now, while the Gospel of Mary does not say where she ended up, tradition has it that she was exiled from the areas where some of the other male disciples of Jesus were working. Peter, especially, didn't like Mary because many considered her the person closest to Jesus, and Peter wanted the title of BFF all to himself. Tradition says that she ended up in southern France near Marseille and then lived out the last 30 years of her life as a hermit in a cave on the side of a mountain. Now, I was a skeptic about all of this when the Da Vinci Code first came out, but since then I've done a lot of reading and taken several courses on Mary Magdalene and her gospel and have become a full-on believer in this tradition. So, I plan to go to the cave where she lived as a hermit and also to the church in the nearby town that claims to have her relics, that is her bones, and her grave. So I told Van, whatever else happens on this trip, I don't care as long as I get my one day with Mary Magdalene. So we settled on a plan that I would get up early one morning and take a bus out to this church, and Van would stay in Marseille to pick up the rental car at noon that day, and he would drive out and meet me. Well, the day arrived, and I woke up with the worst cold I've had in years. It had been niggling at me for a couple of days, but I was in deep denial with the fear of missing out on anything on these few days I had in France. Because of this, and because, sometimes our phones weren't always working well in the outlying areas of France, we decided not to go separately, but for me to go with Van to get the rental car and ride out together. So my one full day is now down to a half day. So we get the car and we start off in the direction of the hills of Mary Magdalene. And Google Maps gave me 2 choices, and I chose the more scenic route, which was only going to be a few minutes longer. I don't know if any of you have ever driven in France, but one thing to know is that France has the most roundabouts in the world, both in raw numbers and in roundabouts per person. So we were going along rather swimmingly, and I was feeling quite proud of Van's driving and my navigation, in spite of several near misses on roundabouts with me sort of pointing and grunting incoherently about where he was supposed to exit. But then a couple of roundabouts got a little confusing, and suddenly we were on the outskirts of a city where I knew we weren't supposed to be. So we pulled over to figure things out, and we got back on the road to retrace our steps and we discover that the roundabout where we'd made the wrong exit, well, the right exit was actually blocked. Google Maps didn't know this. And so we try to follow the French detour signs while Google Maps is talking at us, trying to get us back on the road. And after winding through several small villages, we get past the block and we breathe a sigh of relief. And then we come along to the next roundabout, and once again, the correct exit is blocked. So we start the detouring process all over again. Well, suffice it to say that this goes on for what feels like days, but was only hours. So now a 1-hour trip has turned into a 4-hour trip. And the full day turned half day is getting shorter and shorter. So we make it to the village of the Basilica, and I finally get into the church and visit Mary's grave and her statue and light a candle and sit to pray. And frankly, I'm just overcome, and I'm sniffling, I'm blowing my nose and coughing like I'm spreading COVID all over the place. But actually, I'm just very grateful to be there at that point in the presence of what's left of Mary Magdalene's body and in this place where people have been her followers for hundreds of years. And let me just add, growing up as a Midwestern Protestant, praying to the bones of saints had not really been part of my tradition. Then Van began to hover. I could kind of feel him behind me, and I was a little bit annoyed because I wanted just to be left alone to pray and sniffle after all those hours in the car. But he points out that we still have to find the cave where she lived. So we head to the Office of Tourism and find that it's a 25-minute drive from the church. And when they tell you 25 minutes in France, what they mean is if you drive 120 kilometers per hour and you don't slow down at the roundabouts. So off we head to the mountains, speeding past vineyards and olive orchards, and we keep going and going until we're finally on this tiny, narrow road heading up the side of a mountain. And I live up near the Blue Ridge Parkway, and it was kind of like that, except much narrower and much steeper and much curvier, and people were driving way faster. It's not at all obvious that we're on the right road, and we have our doubts, but we keep going, and we finally arrive at this very nondescript parking lot. And we know that it's a 45-minute walk to the grotto from the parking lot, and that the grotto closes at 6 p.m. It's now 5:20. So we agree, moments before we park, that I'm going to jump out of the car and run ahead, and Van will follow me up the mountain, and we'll meet at the grotto. So out I jump, and off I go. Now, you may remember that this day started with me having a cold. Reality has not changed, but neither has my obstinate determination to get to the grotto. So I go jogging up the trail. I've got a skirt and sandals on. I take nothing with me from the car, and I'm wheezing, and I'm coughing, and snot is running down my face, but I will not be deterred. So I jog past old people, and I jog past young people, up and up a very steep trail. And I'm from the mountains, so steep's okay. But did I mention I had a cold? So I come to a fork in the path, and at this point there's no people around. And I look in the three possible directions, and one of them's down, so I know that's not the right way. And the one right in front of me has this big X on it with the two colors of the blazes I've been following, red and white. So I think, well, you don't want to go the way the big X is. So I take the third trail, and I keep going up and up and up and up. And I'm literally struggling for breath when I finally see a man, and I ask in broken French, "Où est le grotto?" And he's like, "Oh, oui, oui, 5 minutes." And he goes on in French and says some things I don't understand, but I heard, "Yes, 5 minutes." So that tells me I'm almost there. So I keep going, and about 15 minutes later, I think maybe I didn't understand his French after all. So by now, I know that I've missed this 40-minute deadline to get to the grotto before it closed, and nonetheless, upward I continue. And eventually I come out on this limestone cliff, and I climb up to the peak, and I begin across the treeless top, only judging by a small stone with a red arrow painted on it that I'm going in the right direction. There's no people anywhere to be seen. So I walk, and then I see, perched at the highest spot on this cliff, a little stone hut. And I think, there it is. So I make my way there, and the inner sanctum has locked gates. But the outer room has a stone bench, so I lie there and I catch my breath. And then after a moment, I go back out on the cliff, and I take in the area. I had been so focused on my destination up that I hadn't really stopped to look. But now I do, and I can see in 360 degrees. And it's a beautiful, clear day. And I can see for miles and miles. And in two directions, I can see down to the Mediterranean Sea. And in one direction, I can see back to the Southern Alps. And in the other direction is the mountain I've just come up and the vineyards and the orchards that we just drove through. And it is breathtaking. I've been blessed to see a lot of magnificent views in my day, but I can tell you I've never seen a more gorgeous vista than the one I saw that day. I didn't have a camera, having left everything in the car, so I couldn't capture it for social media, and that felt perfect to me. There was nothing to mediate this experience for me. It was just me and my snotty nose, and this tiny stone hut with its locked gate, and this unbelievably spectacular view. So I lifted my face to the clouds, and I just sort of shouted out loud, "Mary, what do you want of me?" Silence. Just the swooshing of the swallows over the edges of the cliff, and the beating of the late day sun, and the soft breeze, and the absolute quiet. No planes, no cars, no people, nothing. just the occasional ringing of a church bell in the distance. I waited and waited for Van to join me and finally decided that he must have given up. And so I started back down the mountain. And when I arrived at the car, he had left my water bottle on the windshield and a note that said, "I waited at the grotto for you and I never saw you, and now I've gone back to look for you. I'm taking the trail to the right," and then in big bold letters, "Don't leave the car." So naturally I stopped and I drank some water and I headed off down the trail to the right. Eventually, around 8 p.m., we finally did find each other, at which point he told me about going to the grotto where people were praying in front of this big statue of Mary, and where the heck had I been anyway? Okay, pause with me for a moment and take this in. I had been struggling all day through a cold, a late start, blocked roundabouts, French detours, winding roads, and finally a jog straight up the side of a cliff to get to this grotto that I had been planning to visit for 2 years. And this man, who could care less about visiting Mary's grotto, except that he wanted to please me, bless his heart, says, "I was waiting at Mary's cave. Where were you?" And this is the moment that I realize I took the wrong trail. And I don't know where the hell I ended up. Except that I was on the top of a cliff with one of the most spectacular views I'd ever seen. So, apart from this being a personal travel story with a little biblical history thrown in, what does this have to do with any of you? Well, think for the moment of the hero's journey. You know, any of those stories we know about soldiers or goddesses who go off in search of some version of the Holy Grail. They set off with a holy purpose in mind, and then what always happens? Obstacles, trials, singing sirens, dragons, things to keep them from completing the quest. This is the universal story of the human quest, is it not? We set off with our ideas, our dreams, our visions of where we're going and what we hope to achieve or receive, and life gets in the way. Until we learn that all of those obstacles strewn along our path, all of those things that trip us up and send us off in the wrong direction, all of them are in fact the heart of the journey. Had I made it to the cave that day, I would have missed the view from the top of the cliff. And as it was, I felt myself to be in a territory haunted by the powerful love of this powerful apostle. I looked out at that view in all the directions, and I imagined Mary Magdalene standing there facing the Mediterranean, maybe with longing for the home that she left in Palestine across the way. I imagined her talking to the swallows as they soared in and out of their cliff dwellings next to her own. I imagined her dedicating her life at that spot to silence and prayer, and trusting that the power of those vibrations that she was sending out into the world in every direction from that cliff would reverberate as deeply as any words she might have spoken. I don't know what spiritual experience I hoped to acquire that day, what great insight I imagined beaming into me from the presence of Mary Magdalene, what transformation I longed for in the secret corners of my heart. But what I got was this simple reminder: God is with us all the way. In every detour, through every illness, at every locked gate, when we don't even know where it is that we've arrived, God is there too. Or, as another great saint, Catherine of Siena, said, all the way to heaven is heaven. Oh yeah.